Very good. So tonight, we're going to start with why we have an Executive Master of Accounting program at the University of Cambridge Judge Business School. Then we'll talk about what we've designed the program to do for you. We'll talk about the structure of the program, how it works. We'll talk about students and networks through the program. We'll talk about next steps and applying for the program, and then we'll have time at the end for Q&A. Very good. So to illustrate why we built the Cambridge Executive Master of Accounting program, here's just a sample of some headlines from the last few years related to some issues that the accounting and finance world is facing. And one has to do with climate change and sustainability and ESG reporting. And I think you don't have to be paying very close attention to know that this has become a very important issue. So some headlines around this area: reporting on climate change, accountants will be needed. Measuring climate change is audit's vital task. Sustainability, we absolutely must wrap our minds around this. ISSB aims to put an end to fragmented sustainability standards. So lots of moving pieces here in the sustainability world, including standards, audit, accounting. So a new and growing area. Not the only area that has grabbed headlines recently. Another one is audit, not necessarily related to sustainability, but traditional financial reporting. Quite a lot of headlines in that area in the UK and globally around a need for audit reform. UK Business Secretary Audit Review Head calls for urgent reform after Wirecard scandal. UK directors face new liability demands under major audit reform. So lots of talk among governments and financial market regulators and the audit and accounting profession around the world about the design of audit as a trust enhancement mechanism, as a really key part of the financial reporting ecosystem that's designed to build our trust in financial reporting. And there seems to be a sense among a lot of stakeholders that there needs to be some changes made to the audit system. So what are those, and what should those look like, and what are the underlying issues here? Are important questions for leaders in the accounting world. And then we have the world of data and AI and machine learning. So we have things like blockchain, like data analytics skills and the need to understand data and data science, and then artificial intelligence. And these things have been around for some time, but thanks to ChatGPT and large language models, we're sort of talking about them again. And this is a growing issue. This is an issue that leaders in the accounting space need to understand very well, because these are coming. So we've built this program to prepare leaders and to sharpen leaders' skill sets and toolboxes to be able to lead through these and other issues. So in spite of the name Master of Accounting, Executive Master of Accounting, this program is designed to train decision makers, not technicians. So this isn't a program on debits and credits. It's not a pre-qualification program that's designed to make you a chartered accountant or an ACCA qualified accountant. This is a program that's designed to enhance students' ability to lead and innovate in accounting and finance roles. We've built this program for students who want to accelerate on their career path, or change their role, or change how their current roles function. This is a part-time program, and I'll say more about the structure of the program a bit later. But because it's part-time, this allows our students to continue working while they do the program. It also allows students to apply what they've learned in real time to their work environment. So we've designed the program to support career paths such as the CFO or controller career path, partnership track in accounting or consulting firms, regulatory roles in financial markets or standard setting, areas like climate or social related financial disclosures, or public policy roles in finance and accounting, among others. But these are some of the career paths that our students have been on and what we've built the program to support and encourage. So let's get into what the program does and what makes it unique. This is a unique program. There's nothing quite like it in the world. So the curriculum really, I think, has three pillars. One is accounting leadership. So this is a practical, applied, leadership-based focus on important accounting issues. The second curriculum pillar is related to people and organizations. And then the third is related to data and data analytics for improved decision-making. So I'm going to walk you through these three curriculum pillars to give you an idea about what's under the hood at this program. So accounting leadership. Some examples of the content in accounting leadership. So one area that we cover is what we call strategic performance management. And this has to do with inside of an organization. The organization has a mission and a vision and a strategy. Strategic performance management is what do we measure and how do we measure it and how do we use it to support the organization's mission and strategy. Global financial reporting would be about financial reporting that we think of as IFRS and US GAAP standards, but rather than teach our students what the standards are, we approach this topic from a leadership and policy perspective. So how did the standards get to be written the way they are? And what are the most complex and ambiguous areas of financial reporting? And how can we become advocates for improved financial reporting standards? So accounting standards are frequently changed and updated, and that process is consultative and involves soliciting feedback from stakeholders. So, and that's the case for financial reporting standards and audit standards and lots of types of regulation disclosure. And so how do we engage in that process to become leaders and advocates for improved financial reporting? Another module related to accounting leadership is sustainability. We mentioned just a minute ago the growth and attention towards sustainability and climate reporting. So this module talks about the new and developing standards around climate-related financial reporting and around ESG disclosures globally. What's going on in the EU, what's going on around the world, what's going on in the US. We look at all the global landscape and how it's changing very quickly around sustainability standards, sustainability audit, and these types of issues. Another area, another key module in the accounting leadership space is what we call the Critical Issues in Accounting Speaker Series. So this is a core module in the program, and it's one that rotates topic every year, and that's based on student feedback and student input as to what topics they'd like us to bring in world-class speakers, from senior leaders from academia and from government and policy and from practice to discuss some of these issues. So our very first conference back in 2019, or speaker series in 2019, was about climate-related financial disclosures. The keynote there was given by Hans Hugervorst, who was the chair of the International Accounting Standards Board at the time. We've covered topics like cyber risk. We talked about and that one we brought out the former global controller at Yahoo, who was there during their data breach, which at the time was the biggest ever data breach. We talked about accounting for cyber risk, and we heard from an ethical hacker describing how he tests defenses. We had a conference on SPACs and IPOs, so we heard from, again, academics who study these things. We heard from consultants who have helped companies do SPACs and IPOs, and we heard from a CFO who had been through both a SPAC and an IPO in companies that he had led. We had a conference on blockchain and cryptocurrency, where we again heard from practitioners, and we heard from regulators and from people who had built blockchain and crypto-based enterprises. And then our most recent conference, our speaker series earlier this year, was related to ESG investing. We heard from again practitioners and academics around this topic. So the topic for next year is something we're still sorting out with our students, and depends what they are interested in hearing about. So that's the accounting leadership curriculum area. So the next area of curriculum I want to spend a minute on is people and organizations, or sometimes I think of this as human systems. And in accounting, the human element of what we do is pretty critical. If you look at, say, a balance sheet or a P&L statement, every number on those statements is requires some estimation, some judgment, some discretion, and therefore it's an output of a human system where there might be negotiation and there might be conflict, and there's certainly communication and potentially tension. So even something as routine as producing financial statements is fundamentally a human system. And then moving out to more big picture issues and larger strategic issues and change initiatives, those are absolutely human systems. So one of our key modules in this area is called change management. And the point of this module is to prepare students to lead change management processes. And so this is a very interdisciplinary module. It draws on insight from organizational psychology and from political science and from behavioral economics and from risk management to understand all the aspects of change management, including things like how power is distributed in organizations and how to influence power in organizations and how power manifests, how change happens and why change efforts succeed and why they fail, how to understand resistance to change and how to mitigate that resistance. As part of our assessment for this module, our students develop a comprehensive change management plan. And this is an area where, as a part-time program, there is a really tangible benefit to the structure, by which I mean students can use something they're doing at their work or something they're doing through nonprofit work or charity work for their assessment for the module. So I have a video here from one of our students. His name is Jose. He's from Brazil, and he's going to say something about his project for his change management module.
My project is called Formadores de Futuro, which is a social project focused on students, low-income students that lives in favelas in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And 2 years ago, when I joined the MAC program, I had a class called Change Management, where we were challenged to build up a project of our interest. We had to structure a project or an idea, and the professor gave us like a structure to fill, like an agenda. You should create a schedule of which process are you doing and how you're gonna do and what you're gonna need, what resources you're gonna need. So by feeling this, at the end of the class, I thought to myself, okay, I have my whole project here, just need to implement it. All of the students come from the favela, which means they usually studied in public schools, and education in public education in Brazil right now is very, very bad. So they wouldn't have a chance to do well in the college entrance exam. So the what we do basically is help them to support them in this exam so they can have a chance to get in college. And right now we have like around 70-80% of acceptance rate of our students in college, which is a huge victory for the project. And our students are now coming back as teachers for the project. And beside all that, we are creating a sense of community inside our project. What the program has provided me is much more than that, like being able to create this project and to reach out people and impact their lives and some behavioral changes on me as well. This is the real result of the program, and I would never thought about this before doing it.
All right. So, moving on under the people and organizations area of curriculum, another module that is foundational to this area is what we call interpersonal dynamics. Interpersonal dynamics is really a close look at interactions in human systems, trying to understand how we interact with others, the way that verbal and nonverbal communication affects our ability to communicate with others, the ability to communicate authentically, to listen effectively and actively, to think about biases and how biases play into our communication. And the purpose here is to build tools and practice communicating, listening, reacting authentically. So part of this is a really a self-assessment. So this is a snippet from a questionnaire that our students take before they do the module and then take again after the module. And then we ask them about their self-perception on certain dimensions, on how they feel and how they interact with other people. Then we ask them similar questions about how they think other people perceive them. And then through this really experiential, almost communications laboratory, students get real-time feedback on how they are perceived and how they interact with other people. So that's the interpersonal dynamics module. It's a persistent favorite module of the students, and it's a pretty unique piece of our curriculum. This training type of module was actually developed at the Stanford Graduate School of Business, and one of our curriculum advisors, her name is Carol Robin, led that program at Stanford Graduate School of Business for decades, actually. And then, so she's been one of our advisors on developing our version of the interpersonal dynamics module. Okay, so moving on now to the third area of curriculum I want to focus on tonight, which is data analytics. And data analytics is one of those terms that means different things to different people. So here's what I mean when I say data analytics. To me, data analytics encompasses using data and computational techniques to generate and answer relevant questions and to automate or improve tasks and decisions. One way to frame data analytics is to think of it as a process. And I have boxes and arrows here, so it looks like it's a linear process, but of course it's not always a linear process, and we do things iteratively, and we may start in the middle, and it can unfold in different ways. But there's some element of asking a question, getting some data and preparing some data, bringing some analytical tools to the data, interpreting the result, and then making some decision or taking some action. So a quick case study in data analytics. This is a really old case study from the 1800s. This is a man named John Snow. John Snow was a doctor in London. And at the time he was practicing medicine in London, there was an outbreak of cholera. Cholera is a horrible, deadly illness. And we know today that cholera is spread through contaminated drinking water. But in Dr. Snow's day, they thought cholera was spread through inhaling bad air from decaying organic material. So there was an outbreak in Soho, the Soho area of London, and John Snow wasn't quite convinced that cholera spread through air. So that was his question. How does cholera spread? So he decided to gather some data through his data analytics process. And the data he gathered was location of cholera illnesses. So he went through the Soho neighborhood in London. He knocked on the doors and he asked if there had been any cases of cholera, and he plotted those on a map. This is a map of Soho. It's a little bit small on your screen, but right around the middle of the screen, you can see a cluster of cholera cases. So here's a data visualization that John Snow used. So once he saw this cluster of cases, he went back to those homes that was clustered around a place called Broad Street and a particular pump, a water pump for drinking water that was located near that cluster of cases. So the action that was taken was to just simply remove the remove the handle remove the handle for the Broad Street water pump. And when that was done, the cholera cases in the area went to zero. So today there's actually a pub called the John Snow in Soho, and there's a replica of the Broad Street water pump missing a handle, without the handle that had been removed. Okay, so this is some very old school data analytics, but it's a process that we follow today. We have a question, we get some data, we do some analysis, and hopefully we take some action that's meaningful and has an impact. Now the process breaks down, and it doesn't always work the way it should, and there's a lot of headaches around this process. And the purpose of our curriculum is to sharpen your skills so that you can implement this process more efficiently in your organization. So if you're working in accounting or finance, you might find yourself trying to answer questions like, how risky is this loan? Or are there potentially fraudulent transactions this period that might warrant additional investigation? Or maybe there's some problem, something going on, and we'd like to learn more about the causes of the problem. So a causal relationship, for example, employee attrition. Why are we experiencing employee attrition? All of these questions can we might try to get at answers to these questions through data analytics. So in the process of looking at data to try to answer these questions, we might look at transactional data. We could look at financial versus non-financial data. We might decide we need to take a survey, so design a survey, gather the survey results, analyze that data. We might use social media data, mentions on social media or social media activity, search volume, or we could merge some of these data to try to answer a question. And then we can bring some statistical techniques to analyze and interpret the data that we have. So it could be something relatively simple, like a visualization. I say visualization is relatively simple, but actually the process of creating effective visualizations is not necessarily simple, and it's one of the things that we explore in the program. We could bring statistical techniques to bear on the data, such as something simple like a simple hypothesis test, something a little more involved like a regression. Maybe in the causal situation particularly, we might use a regression to try to uncover the causes of something we're observing. Something like machine learning, which could encompass something like regression, but also includes the idea that the algorithm is getting better at doing this analysis or prediction over time. Maybe we have text data or speech, audio data or video data with words in it, and we might use natural language processing to try to extract some meaning from a data set. And then the last box, which makes it look very simple because it's just one box, but the action bit of that is very challenging. And one of the key gaps that we find when data scientists are surveyed about their challenges is that this gap between the analysis and interpretation and the action. So decision makers and leaders and managers seem to really lack the ability to communicate effectively, or when they do, that's a pretty serious problem in this process and a common way that this process breaks down. So one of our purposes in the Executive Mac program is to train leaders to understand the data analytics process so they can use it in making decisions. Now, when you think about ways to train or learn about data analytics, you can think of a spectrum of technical detail. So you could have programs or courses with less technical detail or programs with more technical detail. So on the less technical detail, you might find something like an executive program, a non-degree program that's aimed at senior executives around data, AI, machine learning, whatever, that's designed to give just an overview or high-level intuition for these algorithms. On the other end of the spectrum, where you have more technical detail, you could find something like a master's in data analytics or in data science or business analytics. those programs tend to be preparation for full-time data analysis. So very heavy coding, very heavy data work, SQL, heavy statistics, and lots of maths, and preparing full-time coders and data analysts. The executive Mac program sits kind of in the middle of this spectrum. We're trying to prepare sophisticated managers, leaders, and consumers of data analytics. So we do have our students write some code in Python. It's not a lot of code, and we provide lots of support for our students, and we assume zero knowledge of Python coming into the program. It's really learning how to open a file, read a data set, and run some algorithms on the data, and then interpret and optimize the model and interpret the outcome. So there's some programming in Python. We do Tableau for data visualization. So we cover how to both explore data sets to understand the structure of the data and to understand key relationships in the data. And then okay, so what I was saying was I had just heard from one of our students, one of our alumni today, who works as a financial market regulator, and he was telling us that he'd been using the analytics content that we cover, particularly the predictive analytics and machine learning. And he sent us this text that said, "I've been drawing a lot on the analytics modules recently for work. At the moment, I'm building out a machine learning module to detect money laundering flags within the money services sector." Of course, I was really happy to hear that. But the interesting thing about these algorithms, machine learning and AI algorithms, is programming languages like Python have a really extensive library of algorithms that are already implemented. And so once you understand how to use those algorithms and you understand what the algorithms do and their strengths and limitations, Python is a free language. You can just download it. And if you've got the data, it's actually very cheap. It may not be easy, but it's cheap to build a proof of concept of a machine learning based predictive model. And that's the point that we're trying to get our students to. Very good. Okay, so let's go then to another key area in the program. Sorry, I'm having trouble here with Zoom again. Okay, another aspect of the curriculum is the team consulting project. So towards the end of the program, in the second year, our students work in teams to source a project for an external client. And this is meant to be sort of an applied capstone experience where students can use what they've learned to have an impact on a client. The space of topics and types of projects that our students participate in is very open, very wide open. It's very broad. Some of our students do some pretty big picture strategic type projects. For example, we heard from Jose earlier in the webinar, a student from Brazil who was working with his nonprofit that was doing university exam prep for students in rural areas. Later on in the program, during the second year, he formed a team to do a consulting project for this organization, and they built they did some surveys of students and of instructors to try to understand both student and instructor attrition. They built a strategic model and a marketing plan and a financial model to enable the organization to grow. Another example of a project, and there have been many of these, but another example came from a social enterprise called Wild Philanthropy that does among other things funds conservation projects in Africa and raises funds through high-end safaris, and the safaris are based on touring and conservation projects. And so this organization had grown to a number of different areas, but they needed some KPIs and some performance measurement at the group level that they hadn't done yet. not uncommon in organizations that grow in multiple business lines and do so very quickly. So our students did an analysis and developed a set of KPIs for that organization. So we have students that look at more strategic issues in their projects. We have students that gravitate towards more technical projects focused on measurement or on valuation or on predictive models. This is very much driven by student interest and really the direction they wish to go in the consulting project. Last bit about the curriculum, it has to do with electives. So we cross-list all of our electives with our executive MBA program, which means we're able to offer electives that are more focused on accounting topics like tax strategy or academic research in accounting, on more finance-focused topics like equity valuation, mergers and acquisitions, and on broader topics around leadership and strategy, and really a broad set of electives that we're able to offer our students. So our students choose 2 electives from a list of usually a couple dozen or so electives. And electives, of course, are kind of subject to student interest and faculty availability, but you can find a list of recently offered electives on the program website. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit about the structure and the format of the Executive MAC program. The program is 2 years. It's a part-time program and post-experience program, of course. The program is structured around 8 residential weeks in Cambridge, so roughly once per quarter. So 8 times over 2 years, students spend a week in Cambridge. And those weeks are usually Monday through Friday. They're intense, energetic, highly interactive weeks. We focus on discussion and debate in the classroom and case study analysis, not so much on lecture in the classroom. So we also have college dinners. So I'll talk about the colleges in a minute, but Cambridge is made up of 31 colleges, and that's where we have these Hogwarts-like lovely stately settings where our students, we go to dinner and with the students and sometimes bring in a guest speaker with the students at dinner, or guest speakers in the classroom as well. We brought in the head of M&A from BP to be a guest speaker. We've had the CEO of ICAW, which is the Institute for Chartered Accountants in England and Wales. We've had lots of senior leaders in the world of practice. This is a photo actually of Michael Willis, the now retired CEO of ICAW, who joined us at Christ College for a dinner and was speaking about audit reform and audit regulation in the UK and globally. Between the residential visits in Cambridge, so between those weeks, once a quarter, our students are engaged in online learning. So they might be reading case studies or reading some articles and engaging in online discussion about what they've read. And so we begin the debate and the discussion in the online portion, and then come to the residential and discuss further together. Or you might have some live office hour type sessions with faculty where there's some discussion and some opportunity to ask Q&A about what's going on. So that's how the program is structured, is 8 weeks in Cambridge and then online learning and engagement in between those weeks in Cambridge. So in our cohort that we enrolled in 2023, we have 15 students. We expect some growth in 2024. I would expect 20 to 25 students in the cohort that enroll in September of 2024. Most of our students have 8 to 15 years or so of postgraduate work experience. Some have more, some have less. There's quite a range in the program. It's not necessary to have an accounting background. About 60% of our students have some type of accounting qualification, whether it's a CPA or a chartered accountant or CIMA or CFA or something like that. But we have students who come from other non-accounting areas as well. Professionally, our students are very diverse. They come from audit, tax, consulting, corporate finance. We have students who are entrepreneurs who founded their own businesses. We have students coming from a legal background, regulatory backgrounds, public policy backgrounds. And we have a globally diverse cohort. We have students from all over the world. Every one of our cohort has featured students from from the UK and Europe, and from Africa, from Asia, from the Middle East, from North and South America. So it's a very global cohort, and that's very important to us as well because the global nature of leadership, and again, because our model is so highly interactive and based on discussion, we need voices from around the world to understand key differences and similarities and issues and forces and factors that might differ around the world. So your network, of course, will consist of your executive MAC cohort, but half of the residentials will have both cohorts together. So 2-year program, we have 2 cohorts at any given time. So you'll be able to meet and interact very closely with the cohort that precedes you and the cohort that follows you. Then you'll have access to networks outside of the MAC program, but inside of the Judge Business School. So we have other master's programs as well, and global network of alumni that host events and get together and facilitate networking and have speakers and social events all the time. So the CJBS network is very strong as well. Then the other aspect of the network and the other part of the experience that's pretty unique to Cambridge is the college system. So Cambridge is made up of 31 colleges, and every student that's admitted to Cambridge University is admitted to one of the colleges. And for the undergraduate students, they live in the college and eat in the college, and they have small group sessions with professors in the college. For graduate students and part-time graduate students, the relationship is a little bit different, but part-time graduate students are still every bit a member of a college as any other student. And so there are dinners and events and social events at the colleges. There are lectures. There's opportunities to connect with students from around and faculty from around the university. So you can meet people from engineering and from political science and from economics and from philosophy and from medicine and law and all of these. It's a very way to build interdisciplinary networks around the university and connections beyond the business school. So that's a really unique feature of Cambridge. Okay, so let's talk about some next steps in the application process. So we're looking for in the application process, first of all, academic qualification. So academic qualification can be demonstrated or met through a few different criteria. So one is undergraduate performance. So someone who's earned a 2-1 in the UK system or its equivalent in their undergraduate would be considered qualified academically. A student who has earned a master's degree would be considered qualified academically. A student who has completed a professional qualification equivalent to a master's degree, that would be considered academic qualification. So different qualifications that might meet that criteria or not. Something like a chartered accountant designation from the ICAEW is an example of one that's considered equivalent to a master's degree. And in some cases, we might ask a student to take the GMAT or GRE or executive assessment. We don't require that of every applicant. It's just if academic qualification isn't satisfied one of the other ways, then we might require a student to take the GMAT or GRE. If you have questions about your particular situation, at the end today, I'm going to show you how to get your questions answered. But we're very happy offline to talk about any unique situation and the question of, am I qualified? Do I have the right qualifications to be admitted to the program? Very happy to have that conversation. And I'll show you how to arrange that in a bit. Okay, so after academic qualification, this is a professional postgraduate program. So we're very interested in what you've done in your work experience, particularly your impact. It's not necessary that you have accounting work experience or you have finance work experience. Impact can be shown through really any field. But we are looking for examples of when you had an impact and drove change and drove results in your professional life. We ask for 2 references from our students, professional references. We're also looking for references who can speak to impact you've had in your work. English proficiency. So there's English proficiency. The details there can be found on the website. I'm not going to go into those today, but again, questions about your particular situation, we're happy to have those conversations offline. The application has 2 essays and a number of sort of short answer questions, but the 2 bigger essays are focused on change. So we're looking for students with a change mindset that are naturally predisposed to asking about how do I change this system? How do I bring improvement in this system? What do I need to do to bring change to an organization or to a group? And so we ask you to write about experiences you've had with change or things that you might change in your organization. So after we receive an application, it's evaluated by the admissions committee, and then selected students are invited to interview. The interview is usually with me. It's usually a 30-minute interview done on Zoom. It's not a technical interview. It's a chance to discuss your application in more detail, to discuss your background and interests, and also get any questions answered that you have about the program. And then once the interview is complete, then all the application materials have been received, the admissions committee makes a final decision. And we're usually able to turn around a decision from receipt to final decision in 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the scheduling of the interviews. Okay, so through the process of deciding whether to apply to the Executive MAC program, here are some ways to engage us. So one of the best ways, I think, is to submit your CV to us, which can be done by clicking on the profile review link on the program homepage. And then we can have a look at your CV and get back to you with advice on applying. We can follow up with a phone call, a video call, where that's usually done with me as well, where we can talk about your particular situation. If you have questions about whether the program's a good fit for your background and interests, you might have questions about your academic qualification. You might have questions about your professional background. If you how to structure an application, and we can address all our English language qualifications. We can discuss all of those in a profile review conversation. So that's a really quick, easy way to connect with us, to engage, and to get some feedback on making an application. You don't have to do that. You can apply without doing that. Most of our students, many of our students, I should say, do engage us through the profile review option on the website. My email there is on the screen as well, and you can contact me or a member of the program team with any questions that you might have as well. Okay, so we have a little bit of time for Q&A now. So if you have questions, hopefully you can see the Q&A function on the screen. And feel free to type in anything you have there. I'm happy to take any questions now in our remaining few minutes. It looks like yeah, we won't be enabling audio for this one, so go ahead and type your question if you have any in the Q&A box. A question came up about scholarships. So we do have some scholarships and bursaries available, and you can see those on our website. You can see we have some set aside for different backgrounds and different interests and different career goals. Most of those would require something like an extra essay, something like that, to apply for those scholarships. But I'd refer you to the website where we have a comprehensive list of those. There was a question as well. I remember before my power went out, there was a question about change management and ethics in accounting, and how far to go with that, and the tension between long-term and short-term. That's an excellent question that gets at some really fundamental issues in change management and in accounting. So we've got lots of research and data, anecdotally and academic research, about managerial myopia around the focus on short-term earnings, particularly publicly traded companies that are under a lot of pressure to meet or beat earnings expectations. We know that companies that fail to meet or beat earnings expectations are punished with share price decreases. If they're a publicly listed firm, we know that managers, we have evidence of managers taking action both through accounting discretion, like accruals, or through real actions like cutting R&D projects or cutting advertising. We have evidence that that happens. And we have survey evidence as well that managers are willing to sacrifice long-term value for short-term gain. So sure, there's an ethical dimension here, related to what your role is, what the stakeholders' role is, and what does transparency and ethics mean in an organization. So part of understanding change management is understanding what you can change inside of an organization, what you can influence inside of an organization, and how to do that, and how to understand resistance to change. Shifting to from a shorter term to a longer term focus is a really big change. That's a cultural change and a strategic change, and I think that might be part of a leadership change, really, at an organization. So part of understanding what we can do is understanding different types of change, different types of organizations, and then understanding sources of resistance, understanding sources of power, and then trying to develop a plan. And in some cases, it might not be feasible, but that's all part of what we unpack in the program. Okay, very good. Another question related to work experience. So the nature of your work experience is pretty important in the program. So we're looking for, again, some evidence of impact. We're looking for evidence of career progression. We're looking for accomplishments that you can speak about for things that things that you have done in your work. And so we usually find that students with 8, 10, 12-ish years of work experience are in that area where they have accomplishments to talk about. They don't necessarily need to be related to a particular discipline or a particular area, but you do need to be able to have experiences and demonstrate the ability to drive change and results. So that's what we're looking for. And again, if you have questions about your particular experience, please do go check out the homepage and book a profile review and submit your CV to us. And we're very happy to talk about with you about how to structure an application, if and whether the type of experience you've had is something that's good context for applying for the program. This type of impact and experience might come in different ways as well. It might come through volunteer work and charity work and things like this. So again, we're open to a very broad range of experience, and happy to address individual questions on that. All right. Very good. Okay, so we're coming to an end of the discussion tonight. So thank you so much for your questions and for your attendance. Please do engage us with any questions you might have. And thanks for joining us tonight. Take care, everyone. Thank you. Bye.